He's back again. Richard's
Tell a
here.
friend.
Tell a friend. Guess who's back?
Richard's back,
Guess who's
back,
back?
back.
Guess who's
Guess
back?
who back? Guess who back?
Hello, Richard.
Hello, Kevin.
Top of the evening to you.
How's the crack?
The crack is good. I mean, you know, the C. That's a CRAIC. You know, not the inner city crack, but it is good. I have walked into a local bar here in Washington said that was great crack last night. And everybody swung around. And yeah, I you know, that's the thing. You get into trouble. You get into trouble when you come to America sometimes. Did you ever have a saying that you said that somebody just looked at you and it was just like, you know,
I
they could
got
tell
off
you.
the plane when I first arrived in America. Got off the plane, got outside the airport, and asked this dude if I could bum a fag. There are no words to describe the look he gave me.
That was I'm sure there was horror in his eyes. horror. But yeah. Now, I mean, the old fag thing was okay because whenever I moved to America, I wasn't quite that old, but I do remember like the first day going up to the teacher, you know, and asking for a rubber because I'd made a mistake, you know.
Oof.
And I said, "Hey, you know, can I borrow me, please, miss? Can I borrow a rubber?" And I got in a lot of trouble for that. So I mean, I was an eraser for people who don't know. Yeah, we called them rubbers back then. Probably still do in some circumstances, but I can't imagine that that's still something. I mean, no, you've seen a lot of these weird colloquialisms go away as a sort of the what do you I don't know how to describe that. The American culture has swept over the world. You know, we actually learned how to, you know, talk you know, American from like the Dukes of Hazzard. I remember that. Certainly, we would never miss the Dukes of Hazzard. That was the way it was. You're probably too young for that. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm probably not allowed to say that.
Well, because of the general. See, no, you see, that's the thing where you look at it and you'd say, you know, where does that come from? I would say no, and I don't know if I've ever said this before, but you know, it's a funny thing in Northern Ireland where you see a lot of Confederate flags flying around, especially around the 12th of July. It's a very, very strange thing. You know, some of the weird flags, you know, it's like there's weird flags flying on different days, you know, like, you know, you associate it with certain things. Like there's Israeli flags flying in Belfast. There's obviously Palestinian flags flying in Belfast and all these different, you know, like I am done with flags. I just wish they would just do away with all flags. I mean, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but let me just say I've lived my life by flags. They're taking our flag.
You dare disrespect the Star Spangled Banner?
No, it's not disrespecting it. I'm just saying, you know how I don't know if you remember this, but a few years back, no, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, they decided that they weren't going to fly the Union Jack over the Belfast City Hall every day, right? That was the thing. So they decided they were only going to do it on certain days because that was going to offend certain people, right? And so at that point in time, we had to have a riot about it and we moved on. Now, if we would have said we're going to keep it up the whole time, we would have had to have a riot about it and then we'd move on, you know? So no matter what happens in Northern Ireland, after we have a riot about it, then people get over it.
Yeah, that seems like a fair and equitable way
Well,
of doing it.
I think it is, and that's what I'm saying is, and I am so proud of the fact that America is becoming the exact same way. We could just have a riot about it, and then we'll move on. Some people got in trouble with the January 6th thing this week, and we'll see if
Oh,
they
yeah.
we'll see if
The
they
old insurrection. Well, I've
yeah,
got right and left people on my Facebook. Some people say it was a protest. Some people say it was an insurrection. Where do you
right.
stand on that, Kevin?
Well, you know, I am, I'm going to say this. Now, people can't understand my position on this because it's a very strange thing. Be it from Northern Ireland, I would usually say that if it was a unionist terrorist action, it was just, guys having a gag. Somebody got hurt, right? If it was
Yeah.
a nationalist thing, those are dirty fucking terrorists. We should fucking hang them all by the way it is. But then I actually became a member of a family that had lots of people in security services and the army and things like that. So therefore, I actually got to the point where I thought both of these people could actually be terrorists. So my honest to God action of it is when I was watching that live, I said, if that were me, I would have started hosing people down at that point in time. I would have gone live and shot at least 10 people. And I would have
Hey,
thought that if you would have said, these people are in here trying to kill us, they're not where they should be, you give them a warning, and then you turn the guns on them, it would be amazing how little that we would be talking about it now. You'd solve the problem. Because if you'd hosed them, I know I'm probably getting a lot of shit right now. But if you would have hosed them down, right, killed about 100 of them, you'd never have that problem again. You'd never have the problem again. I'm telling you.
but you
I
can't
understand.
kill.
I understand. It's the whole Boston massacre in reverse thing, and so therefore, yes,
It's not.
you.
It's like the bloody Sunday. You
Yeah.
can't. You can't just kill a bunch of people. Just send a message.
Well, but
Just,
okay, you can't. But can you? I mean, let's look at Bloody Sunday as a comparison, right? So the parachute regiment killed 14 people, right? Some of them may or may not have been terrorists at the time. Some of them may just be walking through the street. However, they weren't prosecuted at the time, and now they're trying to prosecute them, 45 years later.
yeah.
Everybody that was ever been in the army says, no, you're not doing that. So they're never going to get prosecuted, and they got off. So did they or did they not have an effective one way or the other? Somebody in this group had an effective message. Yeah, I mean, and that's the way it is. If you say, and we haven't determined yet the amount of cooperation that these folks may or may not have had. But I think at this point in time, at least some people have been charged with insurrection at this point, which is a big deal. And if they were communicating with other people who had sort of aided and abetted on that, which we haven't determined that they have or they haven't yet, I'm gonna say that
Innocent until proven guilty.
innocent until proven guilty. But as some people would suspect in some of these things that these people have broken the law, I'm a big fan of locking them up. I'm always a big fan of locking people up. That's the way it is. And I'm one of those things that I have a very strange thing about it. But again, as a person who was the relative of a politician back in the day who tried to stop people from killing each other, and then ended up being in several situations where I was almost killed by people who were offended by people not being told not to kill each other. I'm kind of at the point where, yeah, I've had it. I've had enough, and fuck it. I'm just done with it. You know what I mean?
Fair
And
enough.
and that's the way I look at it. And that's the thing. Eventually,
Perfectly valid way of looking at things.
yeah.
Just going to take a moment to give a shout out to the chat here. Hey, Gabby. Hello, Frank. Hello, SoFlo. Hello, Shelley.
Well, yeah.
And Gabby said something very, very pertinent. The flag is meant to be pissed on by the very nature of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence. She is right. If people only wanted the good things, you wouldn't need the First Amendment.
Well, this is the thing, and I think it is interesting that I am all for the legal uh, representation. I mean, like I said, I don't care if you say. I mean, let's look at it this way, right? I look at it like this. People say to me, "Well, why don't you ever, let's look at it. I have guns. I have lots of guns. I am Mr. fucking Second Amendment. You know what I mean? I want every
Yeah.
kind of gun there is." And you would be amazed at the between my wife and I, who is a competitive Glock shooter, um, the type of weapons we have in this house. You'd be amazed by it. And so I'm all for Second Amendment rights. I'm all for First Amendment rights. But whenever it comes down to it, people will say to me, "Well, then why don't you say, because Joe Biden's going to take away our guns? Why don't you say fuck Joe Biden or let's go Brandon or whatever?" Pardon my French there about the old F Joe Biden thing. But I'm just saying, well, because he's the president of the United States. I didn't say that about the last one. I'm not going to say it about this one, and I don't think it's right. That's my
I said
choice.
that about the last one quite a lot.
Right, but I'm saying, and what I would say is, if you were wearing it, and just like if I went into a show, a store or a shop or whatever, and somebody was wearing that, I wouldn't confront them and say you shouldn't be wearing a T-shirt like that. That's not right. This is not. I mean,
That's absolutely right.
right, exactly, because you have the right to do it. It's not that but therefore, because I'm not joining your party, or because I'm not coming to your table on a Friday night and hanging out with you, doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means I don't want to be with you right now if you're wearing that shirt. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. Definitely, freedom of speech means that you have the right to say it.
You have the right to say anything you want.
Right. The difference is, of course, is whenever you're an employer, does the employer's right supersede your right to say that to a customer, right? Or whatever. And generally speaking, you'd say, okay, it does, which is a very interesting thing, because I know that we said before that we were going to talk about 80s rap music and what else? Something else. Tom was going to speak about something else.
I don't know. I'm feeling like we should talk about the Constitution right now and everything that's going on.
Well, I think it's good. And I was looking at, I don't know if you remember this. How long have you been on YouTube? For a long time?
A very long time.
Do you remember FPS Russia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not only do I remember him, I still follow him on PKA.
Right. Okay. So this is a perfect example of that scenario, right? A guy who has a YouTube channel where he basically takes guns and shoots the motherfucking shit out of everything. I mean, it's like a boy's best dream, right? I mean, it's like, okay, here's this assault rifle. I'm going to blow this up. Here's this RPG 7.
Oh no, like we're talking about assault rifles. He went he had a tank.
No, I understand. He took the tank to the McDonald's.
He went above and beyond as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And
he embraced the Second Amendment with both hands, and it is a crying shame what happened to him.
Right. But I'm saying that was one of the things that was an interesting thing, because one of the reasons, and we can go into it, but one of the reasons that he had to stop was because of the fact that the ATF showed up at his house for a specific reason, and that was using tannerite in a video that he was monetizing. So,
he had to stop because he was convicted of a felony.
Right.
Weapons anymore.
Right. But the very first reason. So let's talk about it. FPF Russia was this guy he's a native Georgian. He's not Russian. Yeah. Yeah. And he's not Russian. He doesn't really have a Russian accent, but his gig was back in the day. And I don't know why that was.
I had one of his shirts. I had a professional Russian shirt. I
right.
loved FPS Russia back in the day.
Oh, I mean, the one where he was like, remember the one where he had the quadcopter with the chain gun on it? That is the, that is literally
So
the
the one, my favorite video is the one where he almost died, where like the door missed him
oh
by
yeah,
2 millimeters. I was
right,
like, what?
yeah,
And he didn't even flinch. Like, he didn't even flinch. He just turned to the camera and smiled.
oh
It was
yeah.
amazing.
Well, I don't think he realized what had happened until he saw the slow motion video, because I think, and that was like really a 2 foot by 1 foot chunk of door
Yeah.
that just went right. I mean, that would have eviscerated his stomach. I mean, it was right at junk level. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was funny. I've heard him say something about it after that, where he's like, "Oh yeah, well, I did, like I was in character, and so therefore FPF Russia wouldn't have given a shit. But
Yeah.
if it was me in real life,
Internally, I was
yeah,
scared.
I would have shit my pants. You know what I mean? And literally, you'd be surprised about some of those things where that happens at the time, and you don't react to it in the time until afterwards when you realize what had happened. Like for I mean, this is a quick aside. I was with my friend Mad Mike, okay, and we were in a situation where we had a bullet fly through. I mean, we were only about 2 feet apart, 3 feet apart. We had a bullet go through the between our two heads, right? So if you've ever had a bullet go past your head, a high velocity bullet go past, it sounds like a big wasp, right? And so it went past my left ear, went past his right ear. We looked at each other and just basically started laughing because it was so nerve wracking that we realized that, you know, 6 inches one way, 6 inches the other way, one of us would have been dead. That would have been a goodbye highway. You know what I mean? But the thing that's funny about it was that it wasn't until we had actually resolved the situation after that we actually did get scared. And then that's when the fear crept in. You know what I mean? In the moment, we were kind of like laughing about it. But then after that, it was something else. So, I mean, I've been in that situation where, you've had crap fly past you and or whatever. And yeah, I don't know. It's a strange thing anyway. And then whenever you look at it afterwards or you think about it afterwards, you think to yourself, man, that's scary as hell. But so this guy started it. I think he started it with like videos. He was playing Call of Duty all the time, right? So that's how it started. He was doing the Let's Plays with Call of Duty, and he'd worked with a Russian guy or at the car dealership he worked at, and this is where he came up with this sort of anecdotal
Yeah,
screen
he
name.
abandoned gaming videos pretty early on. He was part of Wings of Redemption's whole crew, and then
Right,
he
but
moved to actual weapons.
right, because I think, but what I mean, if I'm understanding this story correctly, it was one of those things where he had realized that he wanted to compare the guns in the game to the guns in real life. Like,
Yeah,
like okay, I'm using this like, remember whenever you were playing my kids used to play it. I didn't really play it, but that what is it, a P90? Everybody wanted a P90.
yeah,
And then so that he was using that or a Styrog or an M4 or whatever. So he's using he was comparing that to that. And then so those videos would only get like 10 or 12,000 hits, and then he would get he would get 50 if he was at the range actually shooting, a 50 caliber Desert Eagle or whatever. So he decided that that's the way better way to go, right? But so then once he started to do that, you can't do that unless you have, if you were owning that, you'd have to have a Class C firearms license, which would be, if you were a collector, you could have then a fully automatic gun. it's very expensive to get a Class C firearms license, but he was relying on his friend who had an FFL, a federal firearms license, which meant that from that standpoint, he was manufacturing, selling guns and ammunition, and this was sort of an adjunct of his, ammunition business and private sale of collector's weapons or whatever. And so this is where he got all these different fully automatic things. And and if you're a dude or if you're a gal and you really like seeing stuff blow, I mean, he was really unsafe. I guess that was the thing that was weird about it, was he absolutely showed no protocol. I mean, if you ever watch Mythbusters or anything like that, they're always standing behind some perspex shield or something.
Yeah, he never did any of that.
This is like, I'm literally standing 15 feet away from this truck with, a pound of tannerite in it. And if you, tannerite is actually kind of a funny, it's not a funny thing. It's legal to buy. It's an explosive, but you have to basically, in order to ignite it, either use a detonator or shoot it, right? So you have to shoot it with a bullet and it blows up. And so you can go onto the internet and you can see people who like blow up barns by shooting a pound of tannerite or 5 pounds of tannerite and it blows up. It's actually, if I were a terrorist, that would be my thing of choice right there. Anyway, let's go that
Your
way.
weapon of choice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? It's small, compact, and blows shit up really well. I mean, as far as off the shelf high explosives you can get, buy that. But anyway, the thing so he starts to do that, and then his friend starts bringing in tanks and like squad based machine guns and I mean, some of the things he's got like 120 millimeter or howitzers and recoilless rifles and all kinds of stuff from all over the place this cat had. Well, the problem is that his friend, who was the actual FFL holder and is in some of the videos, he gets killed, right?
Yeah.
At his work. And it's a funny thing. And then people will always say to me, well, I'm not at risk. And I say, why is that? Because I've got guns. And guns are used by good people to kill bad people. So this is a prime example of a cat sitting in an ammunition factory surrounded by guns at his desk with a gun on him. And somebody comes up behind and pops him in the head with a small caliber bullet. So there you go. Doesn't always work. Anyway, so his friend gets shot. Nobody can figure out who did it because there's no sign of forced entry or whatever. So it would have been somebody he knew, they figure. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a lot of internet people that point the finger at FPS Russia, and I'm
right.
like, why though?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense why I'm the highest. I think at that point in time, I'm one of the highest paid people on YouTube making money with this thing. Why would I shoot why would I kill the golden cow or the cow that gives all the milk or what? I'm mixing metaphors there.
You're definitely stepping over metaphors, but yeah, nah, I don't believe that for a second.
So then FPF Russia takes like 6 to 9 months off, comes back, starts up again. A few days after that, after the guy gets killed, his house gets searched. Now, like I said, that was the first time. There's 2 times that the ATF and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation show up at his house. This was the first time, right? And again, this was because of the tannerite explosion, and they said tannerite is legal for you to buy. You can buy it, you can use it, you can do whatever, but you're not allowed to use tannerite as a weapon, or as a part of using it for commercial purposes. And so they thought that because he was using this in a monetized channel, that he was using this explosive for his own personal gain. That was their argument, right? So they sort of they go through that. Now, as far as not because this was one of those things where the guy, was a famous YouTuber. Everybody's in on it, right? Alex Jones even said that that the guy got shot and blamed Obama. He if you
As
look
you
it up,
do.
yeah, well, of course he looked it up and he said, okay, Obama killed him. That's the way it is. Blah blah blah. We all know it. That's the way, because the guy likes guns, and that's the way. Anyway, I'm not gonna. I mean, Alex Jones is Alex Jones. That's fine. But so everybody was trying to get on the thing. So the other cat comes back 9 months later. He does it for a while, sort of, starts to fall away. Doesn't do it as much, and then he gets in trouble. And he gets in trouble because why? He goes out and buys an eighth of weed. At which point in time, the government gets a search warrant to search the guy's house. Right. They already know, because he's got an FFL, that he's got 52, I think they said 52 weapons at his house. Hey, and call me crazy, Richard, and I know you're going to, but I don't think 52 weapons, if you're a gun collector, is that many guns. I mean, I know.
Not if you're a collector, no. That's amateur amount.
Right, because I know people are going to say, what are you talking about, Kevin? And you are freaking insane. But I have known people who have 52 guns at some point in my life. I may have had 52 guns. All I'm saying is I can shoot one gun at a time. So that's all that matters. Anyway, but so he has, obviously some of these guns are fully automatic guns, though, because, most guns that you can buy that are semi-automatic versions of it, you're talking about $3,000, 3,500 max. If you're looking for some kind of an MP5 or something like that, that's semi-automatic, you're spending $3,500 for it tops. So 52, and he says the value of his weapons were $400,000 that got confiscated from him because he had an eighth of amount of weed on him.
No. It was a gun he owned. He'd painted over the VIN number.
Oh yeah, that was one. Okay, yeah. So that was one of the cases. But the reason that they showed up was because they said that he had gone out, bought weed. They knew he had weapons.
No, he didn't buy weed. He'd had it shipped to himself.
Oh, he had it shipped, but he picked it up.
Yeah, he picked it up from a post office, took it home.
He picked it up,
and they pounced on him.
They said that because he had given his wife or his girlfriend at the time a joint, that was conspiracy to distribute. There was some big thing in it. Anyway,
the felony was the gun that he painted over the VIN number. They said it was tampering. Right. That was the felony. He got charged with weed as a misdemeanor. He only had one felony because he only did 60 days in prison. Right. Okay. But but it sounds to me like there was a question about that because he had sent the gun to a gunsmith to have it like parkerized or some kind of a coating. No, he painted it. He'd painted it and he'd painted over the VIN number. The whole thing just smelled like they were looking for any excuse.
Oh, they were looking for any excuse. Let's not. But let's listen up. If they want to take you down, they're gonna find a reason. That's all I'm gonna say about that. They're gonna find a reason. If they're highly motivated, you're screwed. That's the way it is. That's always the way it is. Sorry, doesn't matter what government you have. That's true. Okay, so he goes to jail then, but on a felony, which means that he no longer can buy it. He can't buy any guns, hold any arms, be in possession of any arms. So that's it wrapped up in a nutshell. So then, but then again, and I guess because it's something about the drugs. They seized his guns. He never got his guns back, so he lost
Well,
the value.
he's not allowed any guns.
Right, I understand that, but I mean, if it would have been like, okay, I understand, I can't have them anymore. But so what do you? So, but I mean, that's a seizure of $400,000. You know what I mean? It seems to me like that's a Fourth Amendment issue. You know, like
the right to protecting you against illegal search and seizure.
Right. But I think he would have made the argument that this wasn't a legal search. They would have said no, but they seized it and your property's. I mean, you know, that sucks. I know.
Suck.
Yeah. I don't know.
It does suck, especially because they seem to like make it so personal. I don't know what happened. I've only heard, I listen to Painkiller already pretty regularly. I know like a basic version of what happened, but it does seem like they had a hard on for him.
Right.
And they went straight for him. So we've talked about the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and now the Fourth Amendment. Impress me, Kevin. What does the Third Amendment say?
I have no clue.
You don't know?
No, this is the thing.
You don't know the Third Amendment?
No. I would say here's I'm just being honest about it, not without looking it up. I'm saying that the average person, if you're being honest and holding your hand, no, I could have said, yeah, right, Richard, you're right here. Just hold on a wee second. If I was disingenuous, wee fucker, bastard, I would have said, oh yeah, hold on. Googled it in one window and then started reading it to you. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
And I'm not going to do that because, to be honest with you, I don't think the average person knows what the third, sixth, everybody knows what the Fifth Amendment
and the Sixth Amendment.
Do you know what the Ninth Amendment is? I mean,
not
the original.
I know the 10th Amendment, but I don't know the 9th.
The original Bill of Rights was 10 amendments, and it seems to me like people know like maybe 3 or 4 of them. If you're holding your hand up and saying, be honest, even if you're going around to people who are literally gun waving at a protest and have a pocket constitution on them, they can't name all of the ones without looking.
I know the 3rd, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, but I don't know the 9th. I know the 10th though.
Right.
But the Third Amendment is really weird because it seems like it doesn't belong in the Constitution. It's definitely a wartime amendment. It says basically that soldiers aren't allowed to seize houses of
okay, yeah.
In times of war or in times of peace.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. Okay, so yeah.
I don't know. That's not the language. I think it's, what is it? Quartering?
Right.
Seizing?
Right.
It's some weird language.
Right. Well, they would appropriate, but this had happened because during the Revolutionary War, the British soldiers would show up and say, okay, how many rooms do you have in your house? Okay, that's great. These 5 soldiers are now living with you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They would just say,
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
So they were saying, no, you're not doing that anymore. We're not quartering you or making you be responsible for where combatants are. But again, this is working on the idea of during the time that we were talking about the Constitution originally, we weren't supposed to have a standing army. This was the whole purpose of militias. We weren't going to have anything more than a militia at any point. Every state had its militia or area like that, and that's how it was going to happen. And that worked all the way up to the War of 1812, when we did not have. Yeah,
that's the reason I know what the Third Amendment is, the War of 1812, because civilians, American citizens, refused to let President Madison into their houses because they didn't agree with the war at all, and he'd just got his ass whooped. You lost the War of 1812. Just want that written down. Everyone who can hear the sound of my voice, you lost the War of 1812.
Well, you see, I know that this is going to be as popular as a dose of a dose of hemorrhoids on Taco Tuesday, but I'm just going to say the problem with this is we've got two British people discussing the American Constitution.
You're American. You've lived there for what?
I understand that I have American citizenship. I am an American citizen. But what I'm saying is if you're coming to this now and you haven't heard any of that, this is going to sound like two British people bitching about the American Constitution.
I'm not bitching. I think that the American Constitution is as sacred can be as documents go. I'm just saying you lost the War of 1812.
Right. But the idea, okay, the idea of, let me put it to you this way. Some people in Canada, I mean, if you look at the War of 1812 from a Canadian perspective, they do not.
We're not looking at it from a Canadian perspective.
Well, no, I understand.
We're looking at it from an American and a British perspective. Okay,
right.
Those are the only perspectives that matter because those were the two sides.
Right, but British America, i.e., Canada, was that perspective. So what happened is that militia groups from New York, from Pennsylvania, those places like that, invaded London, Ontario, places like that, and burned it down. Right?
That is not what happened at all.
Yes, it is.
It is not. What happened was President Madison saw what was going over in Europe and thought he'd throw his dick into the arena. That's what really happened.
Right. But how did they do that? By Americans invaded Canada.
They did not invade Canada, not really. They sent some skirmishes into Canada, but President Madison formally declared war on the British.
Right.
That's how they entered. And then, they all moved down to Louisiana to fight the British on even quarters. And Admiral Cockburn sailed up the Potomac and burned down your capital.
Right.
And then God himself got involved and helped destroy your capital.
Right. But why did they burn the capital? This is my point. The Canadian.
Because that's how they roll, baby.
No, it wasn't how it rolled. I'm telling you. They did it because Americans had gone to Canada and burned towns down. I'm telling you, it was retribution. It was good old tit for tat. You burned down our cities. We're coming up here and burning down your city. It doesn't matter.
We're getting lost in pedantics, all right? What's important is England won the War of 1812. That's what matters. Because I know you Americans, you remember it as like a prank and not an actual war. But it was an actual war. Your president declared war on us and you lost. Just want that written down.
Well, the problem is as you know, the War of 1812 lasted longer than the war in 1812. And what happened in June the 18th, 1814, something big happened. The Battle of Waterloo. And so at that point in time, it was like, okay, all bets are off. So let's face it. The War of 1812 was like a backyard fight for the British Empire. I mean, it really was. When you've got that many troops in Spain, France, all those different places coming down from that, they didn't care. But once they had a demobbed army coming from Europe to America, I mean, they were fixing to bring the full weight of the army to bear on the Americans. No, they never did it in the Revolutionary War. They never did it in the War of 1812. If they had have done it, and things would have been different. Let's just put it that way. I mean, maybe they would have been different, Richard. Maybe. But do you think?
Fair enough.
Do you think that do you think in that case everybody was would have cared. I mean, I think, this idea of America as a cohesive nation at that point in time was kind of a weird idea anyway. We were still sort of a confederation of states.
You weren't a country back then. It wasn't until after the Civil War America became a unified country.
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
the
you
rise.
still had border control between states
Right.
until the 1840s, until the what's it called? The sovereign citizens swear the right to travel. There we go.
Right. Right.
Until the right to travel was instituted, there was still border controls on states. Also, interesting fact: England didn't actually own all of America at the time.
Right.
Nebraska and stuff, states like that. They were all owned by Spain and Louisiana and stuff. That was France.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean that was the thing, right? As we looked at it, so you run into the idea of Florida, which was why Florida was not one of the original 13 colonies, was still Spanish. Spain had Louisiana all the way up to sort of like all the way up to the start of the Mississippi River. So like, where's that at? Wyoming or something? I mean, like huge, but the Louisiana Purchase was huge. And then anything west of that was part of Mexico. And so it wasn't until the Mexican-American War in like the late 1840s that actually became part of America, supposedly. You know what I mean? And so what was interesting is, if you look at it from that standpoint, 170 years ago, that was part of Mexico. And now, if you're Mexican, you're not welcome. Get out. Don't speak Spanish because we won. Okay, but that's fine.
Everything but the Alamo.
Right. Well, I mean, you can make an argument. I mean, from a Texas history standpoint, and I get shit for this all the time. Texas is a horribly run freaking place. It always has. No, listen to me,
Kevin.
Listen to why I say this. Listen to why I say this.
The views of Kevin are not necessarily the views.
No. I'm
Podcast.
speaking of the Republic of Texas, right? Now, here's why I say that. People wanted to go to Texas, leave America, and go to Mexico because they hated America. That was the truth of the matter. People didn't want to be in America again anymore, so they left America and headed to Texas, i.e., Mexico. So at that point in time, they left America and they became illegal aliens in Mexico and Texas. Then they decided at that point in time, well, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to take it over now. So that's what they decided they were going to do, which they eventually did. The main problem with that whole thing is Texas sells beef, right? And there was actually a very, very large economic reason that Britain wanted to have Texas be part of the British Empire, which was for beef. And one of the reasons that that America, and that nobody really talks about, that America actually decided to take the country of Texas, the Republic of Texas, and make it a U.S. state, was because in the 10 years that Texas was an independent country, it bankrupts itself. Totally and utterly bankrupts itself based on the fact that they couldn't legislate their way out of a wet paper bag. No, seriously. I mean, you can look it up.
Stop talking, Kevin.
That's the truth.
Stop talking.
That's the truth. Look it up in the Texas archives. And I know we're not going to be able to tell that because that's critical. That's critical Texas theory. So therefore, we won't talk about that.
Yeah. Look. Okay, there's very few rules on the internet, but like one of them is don't mess with cats.
Don't mess with
Don't mess
Texas.
with Texas at
Yes.
all.
Yes.
They're very patriotic down
Right.
there.
All I'm saying is that's great.
Okay, so we've discussed the first, the second, the third, the Fourth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment is, of course, the right to not self-incriminate. Come on, Kevin. What's the Sixth Amendment?
I don't know.
You're American. You're supposed to know this stuff.
I understand I'm supposed to know it. And at one point in time, I did know it.
Well, the Sixth Amendment is your right to face any witnesses against you in court.
Oh, okay. Right.
Now, for the longest time, I thought it was accusers, but actually it's witnesses. That's what the Sixth Amendment actually said. Not accusers, witnesses.
Right.
Which I thought was very interesting.
All I know is that I know that I should be able to say what I want, shoot what I want, not have somebody living in my house. And I, at one point in time, couldn't buy a drink, but now I can. Now I again buy a drink.
Well, that's the interesting thing. There's like 6 amendments, not the sixth, 6 amendments in the Constitution in the original Bill of Rights dedicated to the criminal justice system.
Right.
Which just, wow. How many crimes were happening when the Bill of Rights was drafted?
Well, we didn't, but again, this is sort of the idea of, abuse by an a government in the town. Now, can you say that the average person was being abused by the system? Maybe, but this is the idea of what I mean. They didn't have jails back then. They couldn't afford it, and they didn't. The idea of putting somebody in a jail was not something that they did because it costs a lot of money to have jails. And so the idea of warehousing people was very hard. So you either, did the ultimate thing, which is, yeah, you're going to die. We're going to hang you or whatever. That's it. Dead.
I think as somebody that's been in prison, I think that killing them is better than life in prison. I'm just being honest.
It may be. I mean, and from that standpoint, yeah. I mean, a lot of times people say, well, look at all these people, they're living with free food and this is that, and and all this different things. They're being kept in a
no. They're slaves to a routine that they have no control over.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to that either. I don't subscribe to that either. But what I'm saying is
in the third month, it was driving me insane. Get up at certain times, eat at certain times, do this at certain times. It kills you. The routine, honestly, is what kills you in prison. And I know the monotony, the routine, and there are people that like prison, and I just don't understand them at all. It's horrible. And, honestly, if I was sentenced to life, even at this age, and I'm middle-aged now, I'd take death.
Yeah. Well, I've said that a few times. I almost died in jail for whatever reason. I thought it was negligence. They would say no, it wasn't. But that's fine. I would not go back to jail either, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sticking to the law because I'm a decent person. I'm sticking to the law because I don't want to go back to prison. Right. And that's honestly how it is. Okay, but what about the 7th Amendment, Kevin? Come on. You must know what the 7th Amendment says.
So you have the right to attorney. You have the right to a trial and an attorney.
No.
Right?
No.
What? You have the right to a jury.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, you have a right to be tried by. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was getting my Miranda thing.
Miranda's not the same as the Bill of Rights.
No,
the 7th Amendment is your right to a jury trial.
Right. So you have right to due process. Basically, that's a better way of putting it. So you have, you're not going to be warehoused in the thing. You have to be, that was a funny thing. Whenever you said last week, I was with Big Glenn Serio, why he was having to have like the jail calendar on a Sunday instead of waiting to Tuesday because of Martin Luther King holiday on Monday. I don't know whatever happened to it, but because of that, if they would have waited till Tuesday for his first appearance in front of the judge, that would have been a violation of his due process.
He posted bail on Saturday.
Oh, he did.
He didn't even spend a full day in prison.
Right.
Also, the reason they nicked him in the first place wasn't because of any trespassing thing. Was because he there's a clip in the video where someone pulled. You remember he was standing outside the parking gate,
right?
And cops. There's a moment in that video where a policeman pulls up, enters a code into the gate, and goes past him. Apparently, Glenn pulls his hand. He's got a hand in his pocket, and he pulls it out really quickly and points his fingers like in a gun motion,
right,
at the cop, and then puts it back really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he got nicked.
Wow. Well, he's lucky. He's a lucky boy. I mean, this is one of those things where,
Well, if you read the police report, the policeman that arrested him said, if I'd had my weapon, I would have shot him at that moment.
Right. I think that if you would have been doing that with any average concealed carry permit owner and acting in a threatening way, he would have got a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway. But you see, but I'm saying that, so that would have been a violation of his due process. So that would have meant that at that point in time, he would have gotten off for anything subsequent. Now, there is an interesting idea about that, and I didn't know about this, that if you get put into jail, there is and you haven't seen I always thought you had to go in front of the judge to get your bail, right? Yeah. Apparently, there's like a set amount for bail that if you get charged for it, like you could, like whenever I got arrested, the standard bail for that circumstance is $2,000, right? Yeah. For some reason, my bail was 10 grand. Now, this is for a minor offense, but I was apparently a dickhead. So therefore, dickheads get to have their bail raised because that's the way it goes. All right. So let's put it this way. There has been people who have beaten the crap out of their spouses and left them in the ditch and everything else that have gotten out for less than 10 grand. Okay. And this is for a disturbance of the peace. But anyway, I digress. But what I'm saying is from that standpoint, so if you put in for that before you go to the judge, actually, it may actually be of benefit to you. And I didn't know that because, like, for example, if you're known to the police or the judge or anything like that, and they don't have a very good view of who you are, you want to pay that fine based on the roles that you can get it in before they see you. And that's what I think he did. Because if he posted bail on a Saturday, he didn't even see the judge. So therefore, at that point in time, he knew, right? This ain't going to go bad. This is the second time I've been in here in 2 weeks. I got to get out of here before somebody decides to make Glenn the example of Glenn. So Glenn is not stupid, obviously. He's just an asshole. He knows how to work the system.
Opinions divided. I don't know if he's smart or if he's just entitled. Washington's a very liberal state, and more than that, First Amendment auditors, the crimes they commit, they're not exactly, big crimes. It's disorderly conduct, trespassing. These aren't stuff that are going to annoy a prosecutor. But on the other hand, he's been displaying behavior that has been escalating. I don't know if the police, because it's not on the video, you can't see Glenn's hands at all. It's not on the video, but if the police is telling the truth and Glenn is on a watch list because he carries a 38 special with him on a lot of audits, that's why he's on a watch list.
Right, because he would say, I'm a strict constitutionalist, therefore you can't take away my right to own a gun. It shall not be infringed, remember.
Absolutely.
Right.
People's right to bear arms shall not be in Congress shall make no law.
Right.
I learned a bunch of this from my naturalization test that I never took, but
right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, from that standpoint, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying, Richard, if everybody had to take the naturalization test, citizenship in America is based on what? Your father's or mother's ability to be born in America or your ability to be born in America. Nothing else, right?
I've got a controversial opinion on this, but okay, finish.
But what I'm saying is that's it. That's the requirement. You win the law. And to be honest with you, that's the part that I don't understand, right? Coming from, let's understand this from a 70s perspective of a Northern Irish person or an Irish person. Northern Ireland was considered to be the first world during the 1970s. However, Ireland, because it was neither a member of NATO or the Soviet Pact, was technically a third world country and still is, because it comes down not to economics, but to what group you're in as far as NATO powers or Soviet Union power. So anyway, let's say this. I am a citizen of a third world country. Coming to America, where literally you have so much, you win the lotto when you get squeezed out of a vagina. You know what I mean? That's it. You win the lotto. That's it. Anything after that, if you're complaining about how the world works, I don't care how it is. You are better than 95% of the people on the planet just because you were squeezed out of a twat in America. And I don't understand why everybody freaking has such a big problem. Why can't they just be nice to each other? What's your idea? What's your theory?
Me, I think that the world has gotten far too small for countries anymore. I'm a globalist, freely admit it. The world is just too small.
Well, that's true in a way, isn't it? The world is a very small place now, and I think that one of the reasons that we have is it a political difference now, really, or is it an economic difference? Because of the fact that if you say that in the times of a great economy, right, and it is a great economy, I'm sorry, if you have money in the stock market and you have, if you are a billionaire, it's never been better, right? And yet you look at it from the standpoint of stock markets up. Now, that's a funny thing that I'll say, right? The stock market didn't go down from when Trump was in office. It's gone up. But back then, the economy was great. If you supported Trump, it was great. If you support Biden, it sucks. You know what I'm saying? Now it's gone the other way. It's flipped, and it's just the other way around. It's just the numbers keep going up. The same people who keep increasing wealth regardless of who's in power. And we all get it kicked in the nuts. And we all fight over whether somebody should get paid $15 an hour to work in a McDonald's or not. and everybody's like, okay, so this is the shift of wealth that we talk about, and almost in a way, and I hate to take it to an economic way, but it's almost like these small divisions that divide us anymore are more to do with keeping us from realizing that we're all being screwed over than to think, okay, my neighbor's trying to screw me over. Ultimately, it's not your neighbor trying to screw you over, you know? And so that's the thing. I mean, I was saying to somebody the other day, it was like, oh, well, we live in a republic and that's where we are. So then you say, well, what about this voting rights thing and everything like that? And you can argue about that. You can argue about voting rights and whether we should change this, these different things in America, like the Senate and the filibuster rule and everything like that. But you do realize that two people in Congress, whether you agree with them or not, literally have this country by the nuts. You know what I mean? So Sinema and the other guy, the cool guy from West Virginia, was it Manchin? He basically, they're deciding, we're not going to change it. Fuck it. It doesn't matter if 3/4 of America thinks changing the filibuster rule is a good idea. Two people out of a country of 352 million people are deciding, well, that's it. That's it. That's an oligarchical way of thinking. You know what I mean? So you can't really say we have representation. These people are making the decisions based on that. Now, we live in a country, technically, where we could all vote on everything. There's no reason for representational government. There's no reason for a Supreme Court, really. You could say, okay, here it is. Roe versus Wade. Should we overturn it or should we go with it? Everybody vote. Okay. You vote for American Idol. Why can't you vote for that? Then at that point in time, it's either the law of the land or it isn't. You know what I'm saying? Why is it that small minorities get to decide what the large majority is? Because of what? Because they got guns? Because they're willing to do this? Because they're willing to do that? Because there's a lot of threats and that go around nowadays. I mean, I can't voice my opinion anymore without getting a threat from somebody. And that's sad. Oh, if you feel that way, why don't you fuck off? Why don't you go here? Why don't I show up at your house and shoot you? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Should that be the way it is? I mean, do we live in Mad Max land? And the only thing that's stopping these people is the fear that they have of actually going through with it and coming over to my house and maybe me getting the drop on them and shooting them first or whatever. I mean, why is that? When did we live in the Wild West? Because it seems like we're more in the Wild West now than we've ever been. And I don't really care what anybody thinks. Live your life, do what you're going to do. Don't hurt anybody, get a job, do what you want to do. Try to act like you're part of society and let's move forward because I can tell you from my childhood, once you start blowing up the Safeway and the 7-Eleven and nobody wants to go to the store and nobody wants to go downtown because you're getting searched because that's the way it goes and you can't take a gun down there or whatever, and your rights, which would be suspended. The Bill of Rights would be suspended under martial law. That was another thing that I couldn't understand. Well, President Trump should suspend the Bill of Rights and declare martial law and seize these voting machines, and that way he can take over and blah, blah, blah. So again, all these people never make any logical sense to me. They're always like, on the one hand, we're all for America. We're patriots. On the other hand, if you installed some president as the monarch of America, they'd be all over it. I don't understand it. I don't understand that people don't understand that at one point, these nut jobs, and I'm not saying all Republicans because I'm actually a registered Republican, but the people who are so toadies and everything like that, who don't think for themselves, in my opinion, would be very, very happy to just install a royal family in this country, and they would say that's great, and he's going to look after us. And I just don't. I think it's a dangerous way of thinking if you're going to change the way we are, because you're right at the precipice of deciding what you want to do. And to me, I mean, people can say I'm wrong, but the burning of the Reichstag and the January 6th Capitol riot were very, very similar. They just had different outcomes, and it could have been very, very close if somebody would have torched the place and a lot of people had been killed. So, life is like that. You get one ball hair away from going one way or the other. And that's why I was talking about that earlier when I had that bullet going through the two of our heads. Sometimes you're just lucky and sometimes you're not. And sometimes people say, oh, and that's the part where you go, well, that wasn't really that. We're just doing this, But I can tell you, I've been to France on July the 13th, Bastille Day. And at no point in time did anybody say, well, there was just a bunch of French peasants going up to the Bastille because they really wanted to see what it was like. And they were just tourists. You know what I mean?
Bit of a difference between the French Revolution and what happened on January 6th.
Is there though?
Yeah, there's a big difference.
Oh, no,
okay,
no.
The French Revolution involved a lot of people dying.
Right.
Nobody died on January 6th.
Well, yeah, technically. But what I'm saying is...
What do you mean technically? Nobody died on January 6th.
Well, that's not true. That one chick had a heart attack and died.
Oh, Jesus.
But all I'm saying is this, Richard. Just because you fail at something, an attempt, does that not mean that you attempted to do it?
Well, you miss this is you don't take.
Well, I mean, but that's what I'm saying is, to some people, and I know this is not.
No, okay, no.
This is a very.
No. I'm going to stop you right here. Right here. I'm going to stop you.
Yeah.
Because you're on the verge of talking shit.
Okay.
And I love you, but you're talking shit.
All right.
If they had intended to do any damage, they would have bought weapons. They outnumbered greatly the security that day. There were thousands of Trump supporters. They could have taken the Capitol. It was just a bunch of malcontents that ran into the White House, not the White House, the Senate building.
Right.
What was it?
The House of Representatives.
The House of Representatives.
It's the Congressional building, because in the center you've got the House to the left-hand side and the Senate to the right-hand side.
Oh, Doug Thompson says a woman was shot and killed. Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. You're right. Leslie Babbitt or something. She was the one that broke the window while they were screaming, "Hang Mike Pence," and killed. And so there was a glass window. She broke one of the windows. The guy came out around the corner, popped her in the gut. She died.
Okay. Well, was anyone during this January 6th thing dragged to a guillotine?
No, but they were dragged. But what I'll say is, I will say this from the standpoint of this is, according to the sedition conspiracy paperwork of these oath keepers, they did have caches of weapons in adjoining states. So as the
they could, they did, they might, they may be.
But I understand.
Nothing happened.
Right.
Trump is a narcissistic megalomaniac.
Yes.
And like all narcissistic megalomaniacs, like Matthew Johnson, he attracts a following, a bunch of cult-like, brain-dead sheeple that are prepared to do whatever it takes.
Right.
These people on January 6th were just those brain-dead sheeple. They're just a bunch of idiots that did something idiotic.
Uh-huh.
And what if this was really a planned attack? Why wasn't everybody else involved? There were thousands and thousands of people there doing a protest. Why didn't they all storm the Congress or the Senate?
Because you want my honest answer?
I want you to give me your honest answer. Yeah,
they don't have the balls to do it. I'm sorry. The average.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
The average malcontented fucker does not have the balls to do anything. And we all know them in the Bigfoot world. And they are like, okay, one of
Sheep.
these things. I'm just saying, somebody said to me this week, right? I should come and sort you out. And I said, I know where you live. Meet me. Let's go. You know what I mean? They want to, you wait till the time comes. And I said, the time comes a year ago on January 6th. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? You know what I mean? The time.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I don't know if we want to be digging this up because I genuinely believe you dodged a bullet January 6th. Because, like, if everybody. Oh, damn. Sorry.
What?
Your wife just messaged me.
What did she say? Kevin needs to get off the phone because he's fucking going to lose it.
These are the people who died in connection with the Capitol riot.
Oh.
Anyway. It's one of those subscription channels. So it's New York Times. I can't read it.
All right. Well, don't worry about it. I love you.
Wait. It said it's.
What?
These are the people who actually died on January 6th.
Right. Well, okay. What I'm saying is this is a matter of opinion, right? It still is a matter of opinion. And so
I agree with you 100% when you said that they didn't have the balls. That is something I agree with. They didn't have the balls to follow the rest of the lemmings off the cliff.
Right. And that's the thing that I'm saying is, and here's the thing. Everybody says, well, but what I'm saying Kevin, is, what? Yeah, go ahead.
But the fact that they didn't have the balls to follow the rest of the lemmings proves my point that this was a spontaneous thing and not a coordinated attack.
Right. But I'm saying it was in the attempt of being coordinated. Now, here's my thing, right? I am not a person who is in a militia group, right? I am not a person who is in the Oath Keepers, although I qualify to be in it if I wanted to be. I'm not. But what I'm saying, I'm not a 3%er. I'm not this. I could have got into any of these other things, but what's the difference? Because they would check and say, have you ever worked for the federal government? And blah, blah, blah. And basically because of what I've done, they might say, well, we're not going to let him in, right? Because they're very, very, on the one hand, very supportive of certain types of law enforcement, but not other types of law enforcement. As you can tell by the progression of the thing. The thin blue line is ironically used as a flag to beat the shit out of some cop on January 6th, and that's just everybody, having a fucking good time. So that's fine. I mean, I understand that. So the thing that I will say about it is that you have to think about the conspiracy aspect of it, and I don't think we know enough yet. And a lot of people will say, well, yeah,
it's a cult of personality.
Yeah,
Trump cultured a cult of personality around himself. And I hate to bring this up, but it wasn't that long ago that you and me were having pitched arguments about Matthew Johnson.
Yes.
In various Bigfoot groups. That kind of person attracts people to them. And I'm not saying that you're weak-willed or moronic. I'm saying that, that type of personality, I've done it too, attracts personality. I've been suckered in by cults, and you end up in a cult, and then you end up a bunch of morons running into the Capitol building. That is not the same thing as coordinated terrorism. And that's my take on it.
No, I understand you. And about the Matt Johnson thing, I'll say this, right? I was glad. I'm glad that at that point in time, I never changed who I was, right? I never changed.
Fair enough.
I never changed personal beliefs, and I never tried to hurt anybody or hurt myself because of it. No, that's the way that I look at it. No, you can make the argument, are some of these people doing this against their own best interest? I would argue, yes, that is true.
Absolutely.
But I would also say that from that standpoint, because of the fact that I would say that a large majority of Bigfoot folks are rabid either QAnon supporters or whatever, that ilk, right? I knew that this was going to happen about 3 weeks before it happened, because people were sending me flyers that says, come on, this is it. You got Trump saying, come on down. You got Bannon saying, come on down to the thing. It's going to be a wild thing. A wild day. We've got it. We've got everybody on the internet saying, teasing it, right? We're teasing it. Then you got people in Facebook groups. They're just, they're teasing it. And I remember having a conversation privately with a guy who's huge in Bigfoot. And he sent that to me, and I said, you realize that what they're calling for on that day and what's going to happen is going to be considered to be sedition, right? You understand that. You understand what's going on. And then he said, well, I'm not going to go to it. And I said, well, I don't care if you go or you don't go, but if you get involved with it, you know, this is a huge problem. And you don't have to be there in the state. If you're giving money to it or whatever, this is going to be a problem. Now, on the same hand, I would never rat anybody out, so I would never say who it is. That's not a matter of it. But if I know what's going on weeks before it's happening, because it's being openly talked about as like the worst kept secret in the world, how come we can't figure it out? Other than people just decide, oh, I'm just not going to show up to Congress and then say anything about it. I'm just going to decide to cover it up. That's the point that I don't understand that, Richard. That's the point that I don't get. Is a subpoena not a subpoena? I mean, you know, it must have different things. Man. Huh?
These are cultists.
Yeah, you know? I get it.
You know, people in Johnstown, they all killed themselves. I'd never kill myself for anyone.
Right.
You know, but
unless you were going to jail.
Yeah, maybe in that case.
It
depends on the sentence. If it was like a couple of years, maybe I'd gut it out, but anything like that.
Have you ever been in a British lockup?
British jail? Nah, just American.
Well, you know, what I like about the British lockup is you're by yourself. Half of the thing that goes wrong, you know, like if you ever.
Yeah, I get that. My cellmate was a tosser.
Yeah. Yeah.
For some reason, he'd stay awake all night and sleep during the day.
Right.
And I'm there trying to sleep at night, and he's like watching TV and running around his cell and doing all sorts. And just, oh, God.
Yeah, so you were way off your game there.
Yeah.
Could you turn the lights off in your cell, or were they constantly on?
Yeah, constantly on.
Yeah, I fucking hate that, man. It drives you nuts.
It does. It's so irritating. Maybe if I've been there for longer than a few months, I would have adjusted, but it was just,
yeah,
it was not fun. I do not recommend anybody, you know, stay at luxurious jail/resort.
Yeah, no, I don't think you really don't want to be at what.
All right, we've gone really long tonight.
Okay.
Let's go along. So we went up to the 7th Amendment. Come on, the 8th Amendment. What do you know about the 8th Amendment?
Hold on.
Are you secretly Googling it?
No, I'm not Googling it. I was trying to write it down. It has to do with, that has to do with fines and bails and things
bail,
like that.
Excessive bail.
No, I don't agree that the fact that we don't have excessive bail. I think that if you go into a British system, the fact that you don't have enough money to get out does not mean that you won't be bailed. Poverty, in my experience in America, right? Poverty is unfair. If you have the bail system and you have to provide some monetary backing to get out of jail because you have to go to a bondsman or whatever, and you own nothing, you're staying in jail until your trial date, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, literally, that's an economic disadvantage to people who own nothing. So first of all, let's say you own nothing, you rent an apartment, you don't own a car, you walk to work, but you've got a minimum wage job, and that's the way it goes. You've got nothing to put up as a bail. You've got nobody to support you. You can't go to work anymore because you're in jail. You may be innocent because you're innocent until proven guilty, but after 3 days, you're put in there. So you've already showed to work, maybe not for 3 days. Then, because all they're doing at the first thing is saying, okay, they're going to set your bail or whatever. They're not going to let you go. They're not going to decide you're just innocent. So they're going to set your bail. So at that point in time, it's 10 grand. It's 2 grand. Let's say what it is. Okay, who cares? It's 2 grand. So unless you got the cash, $200, and a way to substantiate or back up the other $1,800, you're going to jail. And that means that you are staying in jail for 30 to 60 days, even if you're innocent. Yep. Then you have your trial date, and of course you've been in jail now for 30 to 60 days. So you look like a bag of shit, right? So as we used to call it, Mr. Bag o' Shite shows up. He puts on the stand. He looks like crap because you've been in jail for that. You haven't slept in that many days because you got your little friend running around. You can't sleep at night. You look guilty as hell. They've got really no thing. You get found guilty, or you go to jail, you get innocent, and you get out. At which point in time, you're innocent. Your life's been ruined by the fact that you have to start over and you never did crap.
That is kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
So, I mean, that
happens all the time, though. I mean, you hear about these people that are exonerated from life sentences that have been in prison for 10 years for something they didn't do.
Right. But
I mean, what's good? They get like a cash handout from the government when they sue.
That's true if you've been wrongly convicted. But in this scenario that I'm giving you, you've never been convicted. You've never been convicted.
Oh, right. You've just gone through the court system.
Right. You've just not been allowed out of jail.
It'd have to be a major crime. Oh, damn. There's a dude this happened to in England. Sugar, what's his name? Colin something. There was a serial killer down in London that was raping and killing people. Not Jack the Ripper. It was but this other dude the police had a hard on for. They thought it was him. God, it's such a famous case. And they put him through the ringer for like 10 years. They ruined his entire life, basically. They got him fired from jobs. They told his employees that he was a murderer. They even got one of their female officers to pretend to be his girlfriend for a while to try and get him to confess.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it, what's his name? Colin something.
I don't remember.
Basically, he was a nudist. He liked to hang around like Hampstead wearing nothing.
Right.
And so the police, there was a woman that was raped and murdered, and the police were absolutely convinced it was him.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When DNA was invented, it turned out it wasn't him.
Right. So he's some knicker thief, or whatever. Wants to go. I mean, probably not even that. Just a guy who likes to.
No, he wasn't like anything. He was just a dude that liked to be. The Yorkshire rapist. Thank you. It was in Yorkshire. Thank you, Gary. It was like this whole connection of crimes, and the police just believed it was this one guy, but it turned out it wasn't him. But 10 years, his life had been absolutely ruined.
Right. But you see, that's what I'm saying. You do these things occur, and it's like but the thing about it is, if it's rare enough that you can know the scenario that we're talking about, that's one thing. It always happens. It's like the Birmingham Six, or the guys who were accused of blowing up the Irish dudes that are accused of blowing up the pub in Birmingham, right? The IRA guys that were close. I mean, that's behind the movie, not my Without My Father or something like that. You know what I mean? Those guys, and they basically were put in the prison, beat the fuck, Then they were trying to get the confession out of them, and then held in prison without bail and everything like that. And if you that was a rare occurrence where everybody's like, oh, look at that happens, it's terrible, you know what I mean? But I mean, how many times do you think that there's some case in the 1960s or 70s where some black guy got picked up by the cop for something that he didn't do, got beat the fuck, made to confess to a crime he didn't do, and then got stuck in jail and couldn't get out on bail until then he got exonerated, if he did get exonerated. You know what I mean? Too many times to count. Too many times to count. And so that's the difference that I'm saying, Anyway.
What about the Ninth Amendment?
You do the number 9, because I've never understood this one.
I've got to Google this one because I don't know what the Ninth Amendment says.
It's got something to do with the scope of the Constitution.
I can remember 10 amendments. I can remember 1 to 10, but I've never been able to remember the 9th.
Right, but I mean, it has to do. It's like not an actual thing. It has to do with
one.
It has to do with high.
The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people.
Right. So what it's saying is your constitutional right does not.
I think it's enforcing the Bill of Rights.
Right. So you can't. So in a way, I mean, I think it has to do with you can't. All
right. So the 9th.
That's a funny one. We need a constitutional scholar for that.
Yeah,
to figure that out.
Because the way I'm reading it is it's about the guarantee, because the Bill of Rights wasn't obviously part of the original Constitution. It's empowering the Bill of Rights. Like the 10th Amendment empowers state constitutions. I think the 9th Amendment is empowering the Bill of Rights.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Because the 10th Amendment is the delegation of authority amendment. That's the one that gives each individual state's constitution the same power as the federal constitution.
Right.
But I'm reading this 9th Amendment as, empowering the Bill of Rights. Well, I mean, I may be wrong. That's how I'm reading it.
Right. Well, I think that you're coming up to the thing, and then the thing that I find is hard about this is, of course, the two main arguments in America, in my estimation, are states' rights versus federalism. Right? Is the federal government literally supposed to make definitions of states? So you can get around that. So you can say state law says this, that the federal government should not have power over the state, right? Mm-hmm. But the same people who make this argument, like for example, right? So let's say people make the states should decide all the time argument, right? And that the federal Constitution should be subservient to the federal government should be subservient to the state government. The state government should be the automatic. But then again, now, if you say to them, okay, well, that's fine then. So our state's going to say you can't own a gun. Then they're like, no. The Constitution says you can't do that. So, I mean, again, it's always the dance around. You know what I mean? Well, this is how politicians stay in power. They work the system both ways.
It's so difficult because it's called the United States of America.
Right.
And the way I've always understood it is it's not one country. It's 50 separate
50 sovereign states. Yeah.
that have decided to work together and
Right.
two territories.
Right.
And, and each of the state's constitution is as important as the main constitution because, that they've each got the right to govern themselves. But it gets really...
Right. But I think that the problem with that is, as you can see with Brexit, right, which is a confederation, again, of several nation states who decide to economically...
I don't want to talk about Brexit. Brexit makes me sad.
No, I understand. But what I'm saying is it's the same thing. At this point in time,
I get that.
At the same time, legally, everybody should have these rights under the states. The problem with it is, after 150 years of federalism, how can you unwind it economically? That's the problem. That is the problem. How do we decide? How does Texas decide? Okay, say for example, Texas has...
Can we not?
Okay. Florida decides it wants to leave. I'm just saying Texas because they would actually have a right to do it. Florida decides it wants to leave the union.
Wait, why does Texas have... all states have the right to leave the union?
Well, no, under the way that they were brought into it, actually Texas can become a republic again, or at that point in time become 5 states. Texas has the rights to divide up into 5 separate states, which would mean that Texas would be a superpower in the Senate. You would actually have 10 senators from the former state of Texas. It's a funny thing. Okay.
That's incredibly confusing.
Right. So but let's just say, let's pick a state. Doesn't matter. X state decides it wants to be out of the United States, but
yeah,
it's got federal roads. It's got army bases on it. It's got things that are owned by the federal government, all these different things. How do you unwind that? How do you establish what you do? I mean, because obviously a lot of the states that don't want to be part of America are a net revenue loss to other states. Let's just say, if you live in Washington, you put more into the federal government than the state takes out of it. If you live in Idaho, it's the exact opposite by about $4,000. The average citizen of Idaho takes more money from the federal government than they put into it. But at the same time, they're super Republican and they hate the freaking federal government. But that doesn't stop them from taking the money. You know what I mean? So that's the problem. If you then economically say, okay, well, Idaho, you leave America, everybody in Idaho starts paying $4,000 more a year in taxes, you're going to have a problem there too. It's kind of like the after the revolution, the first thing that the Congress had to do was pass a whiskey tax that people rebelled against, because that was a tax on that. And then George Washington had to lead the army into the field against Americans to get them to pay the whiskey tax. And nobody talks about that either. You see what I'm saying?
Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about the fact that vaccines saved your nation.
Right. That was the first. I mean, they were all forced, quote unquote, to be inoculated. If you were in the Continental Army, you took the inoculation, which is not a vaccine. Obviously, what they did was they scraped
scabs and they put it on open sores.
Right, so that you would be would have it.
But it worked.
Right. So, and because we didn't have any other federal government at the time, that was the entire federal government.
Hear that, anti-vaxxers. Vaccines saved your entire nation.
Well, I mean,
politics.
This is a sad thing.
No. If we're going all in, I'm going all in.
No, I'm with you 100%. I know literally 5 people that are on ventilators right now. None of them are vaccinated. Meatloaf died of it because he says, well, I'm not doing it. If I die, I die. Well, then you die, right? I get these things every freaking day. Please pray for blah. Please pray for blah. Now, if you go back and look at blah, blah, blah's post 3 months ago, it's like, fuck this. Science is bullshit. You're all bullshit. This is all bullshit. This is a hoax. You're bullshit. And now they're all hooked up on a ventilator. They've been on a ventilator now for 3 weeks. So you all know what's coming. You know you're going to have to be like, oh shit, I'm sorry that X died. That sucks. Yeah, I'm getting I'm getting myself ready for it. But one of these days, I want to just wake up and say, why the fuck do I have 5 friends that are on ventilators and doing this? You know what I mean? I'm 50 years old. I shouldn't know 5 people in the freaking critical care unit. You know what I mean? I shouldn't. Yeah. I shouldn't. Unless they're all in the same car and some freaking semi hits them. But these are people all around, and that's the thing. That's a funny thing. And they'll always say, well, yeah, it's just this, it's just that. It's not just nothing. It can't just be nothing. I've never known, I've had family members die of COVID before the vaccination, one in this country, one in Britain. I've had other, we had Samantha Recchi die of COVID. We had, now other people who are going to die of COVID. And I just, it's not nothing. It's not nothing. That's all I can say. I mean, you can't, eventually you have to look at your, I'm sorry.
It's getting super late.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's all right. No. I get it. Yeah, so we've covered all 10 amendments. I need to go to bed soon. So, let's, So that'll wrap us up for this week. We will return next week, despite the hopes of many. It was a really good show tonight. I feel kind of bad about wrapping it up like that, but I need to go to sleep soon.
I think, you know what, Richard? I think that we should just put this down as sometimes you just got to fucking blow the shit off and you just got to talk about what you're talking about. And then you go back. And then next week you go back to I'm just going to try to be happy about everything,
Yeah, let's hope we get like Nikki or Tom next week.
Right, but this basically was the petty informed.
Obviously, we're a bad influence on each other.
Right, the petty and ill-informed shit show of emotions.
I just called it the American Constitution this week.
Yeah, and so I do apologize to anybody. I think everybody has the right to do whatever they want to. Live long and prosper. That's all I want from anybody is to wake up and have some good fucking news one day. I'm just waiting for that day.
The sign and say, "May the force be with you."
Exactly. I just want the sun to come up tomorrow and everybody to be like, "Oh, look at that! There's a flower. Isn't that nice? Everybody's lovely and everybody's happy."
Yeah, let's talk about something happy next week.
Right.
Let's think of something really nice that happened to us during the week and talk about it next week.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. All right. We will return next week, despite the hopes of many. It's good night from me, and it's good night from Kevin.
May your God go with you.
Disco does not suck.